Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Space Potaters Episode 6. In this episode, we will first be fixing a handful of errors that we saw at the end of Episode 5, and then we're going to be retooling the game over sequence so we get a fade in and fade out there, and we're also going to rewrite the player death sequence, that function. There are some changes to that in order to make that work properly. And that's going to wrap it up for episode 6. So let's get started. First thing is to fix those errors that we saw at the end of the last episode. And the first one was, I noticed as I was rewatching the video, just a quote that was out of place. I think that we can scroll down here, and that is in the game over sequence. Yes, this quote should not be here. It should be there. So that should take care of that one. There was an error where when the player was dying, the little icons that indicate extra lives were not disappearing. And that's way down here at the bottom. I'm on line 479, and that should be player 2.visible equals false, and then player 3.visible equals false here on line 43. That makes our little icons disappear as you use up your lives. Was why I was confused in the last episode, that we were making the player ship invisible there. Didn't make sense. That was actually supposed to be just the little icons in the upper right-hand corner. We also noticed that the score was not being incremented as aliens were being blasted, so we need to fix that one, and that would be in the update alien hits function here. We just need to add at the end of each of these blocks, if laser is touching alien 1 or so on, score ++ to each of those. So I'm going to grab that, copy it down there, and that will increment the score. And that's it for those errors. The other thing that we were seeing, well, there were two other things. One was aliens were respawning up here off screen and moving after they were destroyed. And then also the player ship was being blown up multiple times if it got hit multiple times, because we were just making the player ship non-visible instead of moving it off screen. So we're going to move it off screen. We're going to fix that. So I'm going to go all the way back to the top because we have a bunch of variables to add. And there are 7 of them. The first one here is going to be a fade counter, because I wanted to try something a little fancier with the fade in and the fade out of text. Figured out how to do that. So the first one is fade counter. Set it equal to 0. The next one, we've got 2 variables for the player death sequence, player died sequence 1 and player died sequence 2. We have 2 new player died sequence variables here, player died sequence 1, which would be set to true, and player died sequence 2, which would be set to false. Then we have 4 variables for our game over sequence. First one, game over sequence 1, should be set to true. The next 3 are set to false. And that's all for variables. There are no updates to the animation tab or our sprites here. So we're going to go all the way down to the draw loop now. And we need to add a bunch of stuff to the introductory segment. It's all going to go right here above draw sprites. And the first thing is we need to move the start button into place, because when we click start, it moves the start button off screen, so we need to put that back in place. Then we need to reset lives to the starting point. Then we need to make our little extra ship, player 2 and 3 icons. We need to make those visible. We need to reset all the aliens to their start position. So we're going to set all the X and Y coordinates for our aliens. I'm going to copy this down. Alien 2 goes to 12050. Alien 3 is 250. Alien 4 is 275.50. Alien 5 is 350.50. Okay. And that will be all for the intro updates. Restart after player death has no updates here. Game over. This is going to be rewritten and there's some significant code here. And you know what? I just realized I lied. There is a new animation and it's just a black screen. So we need to just make, let me check the site. I guess 400 by 400, just a black screen. Draw your own. And we're going to call this fade to black. We're going to make this 400 by 400. I'm resizing. I think that's off the screen. You can't see that, but I'm resizing this to 400 pixels by 400 pixels. And then I'm just going to fill the whole screen here black. That should do it. Fade to black. This is how we're going to fade the screen to black. We're going to adjust the alpha of this sprite. Okay, so let's go back to the code then. And I'm in the else if game over toggle equals true part here. I don't know if I'll do this differently at some later time, if I can find a better way to do this, but this is the way I was able to figure out how to do it. And I do it in 4 different sequences. The first thing is we're going to fade everything out to black. So we're going to do a conditional if game over sequence 1 equals true. We're going to increase our fade counter. And then we're going to increment the fade to black alpha, the alpha property of the fade to black sprite, that black screen. We're going to increase it by 0.05 each time through this little segment here. And then we have to draw sprites because we're drawing this fade to black sprite over the top of everything. And then we got to stop this eventually when everything is faded out. So if the fade counter becomes greater than 50, so it'll go through this process 50 times. We're going to reset the fade counter. We're going to set game over sequence 1 to false and game over sequence 2 to true. And that's it for that conditional. Now we do the next sequence. So now our screen is black, and then if the next one is true, which it is, we're going to go into this block of code. We're again going to increment our fade counter, and we're going to write game over to the screen. That's this. Move that up here. Let me get rid of this. And we want now to adjust the alpha of the fade to black, the black screen back down to 0 so we can see the text that we wrote to the screen. So that's a minus equals 0.05. And then we need to draw sprites. And then if our fade counter, again, is greater than 50, we're going to set it back to 0. We're going to set game over sequence 2 to false and 3 to true. That's it for that block. Okay, I just took a break for several days and came back to this, so I got to remember where I am. We're in the game over sequences to fade in and fade out game over, and we just added the third code block. The code block for the third sequence, for the second sequence, and now we've turned that one off and we're turning on the third sequence. So we're going to code this. If game over sequence 3 equals true, what are we going to do? So this is just adding a block of time for the game over text to show. So we're going to once again increment fade counter. And that's all we're doing here until it goes 80 times through this loop, which is, a little over a second, it should show. And then we're going to say, once we loop through it 80 times, reset the fade counter, set sequence 3 to false and 4 to true. So we turn off this code block, we turn on the next one. So this one is, we gotta close this if, and then if game over sequence 4 equals true, increment the fade counter, and then we have to dial the alpha of the fade to black sprite back up. I'm gonna grab this line and change this to fade to black.alpha plus equals. Then we have to draw sprites. And we're gonna change this to from 80 to 50 here. So we dial that up 50 times, then we reset it. We also reset the fade counter here. We set the game over toggle to false, because we're done now with the game over sequence. And we want to run the intro again, because the game's over and we want to restart it. So we're going to make the intro toggle true. And then for the next time the game is over, we need to set game over sequence 1 to true. And we need to set 4 to false. And then we're going to play a sound. We're going to play... Oh, we're going to restart the intro music. There we go. Oh, and we forgot to put in the fade to black sprite above. So let's go do that. Put that right here. Put it right in the middle of the screen at 200, 200. Set the animation. I don't think I need to scale that because I made it 400 by 400, but we need to set its alpha to 0 because it needs to start invisible, otherwise it's going to cover everything up. Okay, good, that's done. Incidentally, I don't think I've explained in clear detail the sequencing works when you turn off a code block and turn it on with a conditional. I'm going to make a separate video about that. I think I already actually have, but I'll probably make another one to explain sequencing. So if that's confusing to you, I would definitely go watch the how-to sequencing video. That's a technique I use all over the place. A lot. All right, I'm going to go down. I'm going to collapse these functions here. Update laser, update alien hits. Did we put, yeah, we put the score in, and then we're actually going to go all the way to the bottom and retool the check player died function. Looks like this is going to get significantly longer. Let's see what we do here. Okay, so I separated this into 2 parts. So we have 2 sequences here that happen in order after the player died toggle becomes true. And the first one is player died sequence 1. We set that to true. So, or rather, since it's all, I believe it was set to true at the top. Was it set to true at the top? Player died sequence 1 equals true, yeah. So as soon as we trip the toggle, we go into this first sequence. And we want this to fire only once, immediately only once, because this is where we move the burst onto the player location and make the player invisible. So this is the way that I solve the problem of multiple player deaths, like an alien hits you and it plays the sound and the bursts, and then another alien hits you and it does the exact same thing over again. This is how I eliminated that, so it happens only once. So like I said, first we make the player invisible and then move the burst to the player. And then we immediately make the sequence false to turn it off, and then we make sequence 2 true to turn it on. And that's all for that. So then what happens when we go into the next sequence? We move the player now, and the burst will stay where the burst is. So player goes to its off-screen location. We increment the death pause counter because we want, oh, okay, I think that's when now where we go into this. we can eliminate this line, player.visible equals false, because we already did that up here. So we increment the depth pause counter, we play the burst, we can eliminate this, because that's done here. Yeah. And we got to move this. This is all going to go right here into this if statement. Let's just go all the way through it, though. If depth pause count is greater than 20, yes. Player die toggle is false. So that's reset. Player died sequence 1 and 2 become true and false. So we need to add player died sequence 1 is true. Player died sequence 2 is false. So it's ready to go for the next time. We reset the depth pause counter, that stays. And then the burst has been shown, so we now need to move the burst to its off-screen location. We can eliminate these two lines. Burst 2 goes to 600, 600. We decrease the number of lives. We set the game over toggle. We reset the game over toggle to true. No. Why would we set the game over? Oh. No. Okay, yeah, this line is correct. And then if lives is less than 0, we set the game over toggle. I don't think any of this changed. Oh, we got to move all this into here. All this goes in. So I'm just going to delete this curly brace bracket. And then I'm going to re-put it down here at the end. And I'm going to fix my indentation so it's easier to see that all of this indent is within this if statement. Actually, it should be indented. We need to indent again. Indent. That if statement ends there. Then we end that if. Then we end that if. Then we end the function. Okay. Whew! I think that's it. It's time for a test, I believe. All right, let's go over here and test this. That was weird. It seemed like the audio was slow. That was better. It's not starting when I hit the start button. I'm just going to reset the camera real quick. Okay, reset the camera zoom to 1. Okay. Oh, it seems to be working. We still have this weird problem of these aliens moving up here after they've been destroyed, but that should be an easy fix. The game over sequence is not working. We need to fix that real quick. Let's do that. Problem here is down here at the bottom. Let me look at this. Yeah, so if lives is less than 0, meaning you've used your last one, you've lost your last one, and it goes to -1, then the game is over. But this, yes, should be 1, but this should be 0. If lives is 0, which means that you just initiated your last life. And I had that in my notes, but it didn't seem right, so I didn't change it to 0, but it is right. So that should take care of that. Let's try it. And the last one fades to black. Game over fades in. Game over fades out. Starts over. Yeah! Okay, wunderbar. And that is all for this episode. Thanks for tuning in if you watched this far. In the next episode, I think I'm going to do an interlude that is going to be on sprite groups, because we're now at a point where, the game is somewhat finished. But I would like to actually add a whole bunch more aliens, and that's going to require sprite groups. And I'd also like to add the shields that slowly dissolve as the bombs hit them, and that's also going to require sprite groups. So that will take us into the next dimension, into the next level of complexity, and I'm looking forward to it. So once again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time in episode 7, or perhaps interlude.